now. Thanks for joining us. It's really good to see lots of familiar faces, and the new folks, I hope to meet you in about a month, maybe, but I'll probably see you more frequently through Zoom meetings. My hope for this year and for the kids is that we can have as normal, typical a school year as possible, given that we're in a pandemic. Because of COVID-19, the things that won't be normal are everybody will have their temperature taken before they come in the building or before they get on a school bus. Everybody will be wearing a mask. Everybody will try as much as possible to social distance. And everybody will be washing hands or using hand sanitizer at least once an hour. Probably some kids more frequently than that. Wearing masks for our little guys can be challenging. I would ask that you have your child practicing wearing a mask. We will take mask breaks. At recess, they won't have to wear their mask when they're outside. At lunch or at snack, they won't have to wear their mask. At lunch, we have the cafeteria, the music room, and the vestibule arranged so that the kids will be sitting 6 feet apart, and that's why they won't have to wear their mask, is because they will be social distanced. I'm going to encourage the teachers to take what I'm going to call mask breaks. So in most classrooms, they do brain breaks. So if it's nice enough for them to go outside for 5 minutes to do that brain break, they can spread themselves apart, take their mask off outside, and then come back in with their mask on. So they will be able to take that mask off when they can be socially distanced or when they're outside. The temperature, we're calling a fever 100.4. So we are going to encourage you to take your child's temperature in the morning before school, if you can. That way it gives you a heads up if they do have a fever. Otherwise, we'll be taking it here at school. My hope is that I can have staff meeting families outside so that when parents are walking up with their child, we can take the kids' temperature right then. So if they're good to come on inside, they come on inside. If they have 100.4 or higher fever, then we're going to ask you to just turn around and take them back home. The same thing on the car drop-off side. We'll be trying to take the temperatures while the kids are still in the vehicle. So if they don't have that fever, they come on in. If they do, then you're in the car with them and we'll ask you to take them home. There are some challenging times during the day. Dismissal is one of those challenging times. We're going to try to get to the bus lines by grade level, but that's a time when we cannot have cohort groups, class groups, because different kids from every class ride the same bus. On the bus, they will have to wear a mask. While they're waiting to get on the bus, we're going to have them spaced out in line and wearing a mask. The kids that are getting picked up by a parent or a babysitter or somebody out in front of the building, we're not going to crowd them all under the canopy the way we always have. We'll open those 2 sets of interior doors and we'll just have a much longer line. So it may take a little bit longer for that car pickup dismissal, just because we have more distance to cover finding the kids and getting them out to you. Specials, we haven't figured out how we're going to do specials yet. Whether the specials teacher will go to the classroom or whether the kids will go to the art room or the library or the gym. Because teachers aren't on staff yet, we just haven't had an opportunity to figure that out. But we have several ideas, and there's a lot of emails going back and forth, but we're going to try to do what's safest and what's developmentally appropriate for our kids. Some of the schools are going to have specials for the whole hour. We're not sure that our kids, being as young as they are, can handle that content for a whole hour. So we'll get back to you with what the plan is for specials. That's the in-school. Now, I think most of us understand and expect for there to be a quarantine of a class or a closure of the school at some point. We are going to keep classes to themselves. We're calling that a cohort, so that it'll just be that class. That way, if there is someone that ends up testing positive for COVID, we can just quarantine that one class rather than a whole grade level or a whole building. So that's the importance of trying to keep each class as a group among themselves. If we have to pivot and go to an at-home situation, it will not be, in many ways, it will not be like it was last spring. Last spring, we were told by the State Department of Education that we could only have the kids instructionally for between 30 minutes and 60 minutes, depending on the grade. This time, what the state is telling us is it will be 360 minutes. I almost said 360 days, but no, it's 360 minutes for a full-time student, 180 minutes a day for a half-time student. Our only half-time students are the early childhood 3- and 4-year-old half-day program. The early childhood 4-year-old all-day program has to, their numbers are, their hours are counted a little bit differently. They have to have 465 hours of instruction in a year. So they're counted a little bit differently. What that means for the online part is 360 minutes a day. But of that 360 minutes a day, that's not all screen time. That just would not, it's hard enough for me and any of you that have computer jobs and you do that for 8 hours a day, I don't know how you do it. For the kids, the teachers will be providing some small group instruction, some whole group instruction, and that will be through Zoom, Seesaw, and they will be assigning activities, tasks, homework. Doing all of those activities, even while the computer's turned off, that's going to count towards that 360 minutes. If your child goes out and builds a fort, that's great STEM activity, science, technology, engineering, and math, that counts. If they go out and play catch with you. That's PE. So almost, for us, we really are pretty lucky because almost everything that a young kid does is a learning activity, whether they're in school or whether they're out of school. The teachers have standards given by the state that they have to develop activities and learning instructional pieces in order to help your child learn those standards. So those will be coming, but it's not going to be all on the computer. I know that is a concern for a lot of people. The teachers will be working during their regular teacher workday. So I know that makes it difficult for some families that have, you're working, you're not there to help your child with the schooling part. I'm going to encourage teachers to make videos and have those available in Seesaw so that if needed, those could be viewed later after you're home from work, after the teacher's gone back home to her family, his family. But we understand lots of families are going to have a hard time getting that schooling piece in during what would be a regular school time if they're at home. The remote option is through a program called Acellus. That program has the content. If that's your family's choice for this fall semester, your child would use that Acellus program. Your child would be assigned a Baldwin Elementary Primary Center teacher who would support and facilitate your child's learning within the Acellus program. There would be daily contact with your child. And once again, the teacher's workday is during the day from basically 8 to 3:30. So that's when that daily contact with the students would need to happen. In that remote program, there is a daily log that the parent has to sign. And right now, I'm not sure whether that's a paper copy of a daily log. We're hoping that we can do something different than that. Or it might be some kind of Google form. Janna, you want to pop in here?
Sure. We're actually working with the state on this because a paper form just doesn't really, it's not going to work. So we're trying to figure out what's going to be the easiest thing for parents, for kids, for everyone. But basically there will be some type of log that you have to sign that says there were 360 minutes of learning activities. And then we collect those and then somehow we send that to the state. But we're trying to simplify that process as much as possible. Maybe even if it could be collected on a weekly or monthly basis. So because the Acellus program will also log their time. So we'll be able to keep track of that. So it's just, we just need to make sure that the funding piece is there, and that's what the log is for.
And for those of you that don't know who was just talking, that was Dr. Janna Craig-Hare, and she is our district curriculum director. So she's been an active participant in all of this pre-planning. Okay. Janna, do you want to show Acellus?
Sure. Yeah. So what I can do is I'm going to share my screen. While I'm doing that, I'll answer one of the questions. I was getting ready to type it in there. For our littles, we're thinking it's probably about 20 or about 2 hours of screen time. So if we think about the core content areas that maybe they do 20 minutes per content area, math, science, language arts, and social studies, and then they have a class meeting. So that'd be about 2 hours of screen time. We really want to limit that and ensure that we're getting other things in, like reading and playing and doing all the things that really help in development of kids. So I am going to share this screen. Basically, I set up a demonstration for kids at different levels. So I think this is a first grader I put in here. Can you guys see my screen? Deb, can you give me a thumbs up? Okay, Sarah's nodding. I'm good. Okay, so I log in here. This is what a student from the primary center would see, something similar to this. They would have their orientation. They would have their 4 core content areas. There are some electives in there, so we could look at those. If those would be good for your child, we could put those in, but really we're thinking probably just those 4 areas, and they would get other learning from either outside of Acellus or from their remote learning teacher. We're gonna go ahead and go into math. Typically, they would have like a pre-test and then a post-test, and that pre-test will actually inform the teacher of things that the student needs assistance with. And so I've skipped all that. I've skipped ahead from the introduction. This teacher is actually, they're going on a field trip, so they're counting students and counting dinosaurs.
How can I figure out if I have enough toy dinosaurs? Well, let's try using a marker. I will draw a line from each student to his dinosaur. Ready? Let's see if we have enough. So he gets a dinosaur. He gets a dinosaur.
So there's just a little sample of what you would see. This is similar to an activity they would have done in class. So, and as far as counting up, you could see the videos. This is a first grade video. It's not very long, so it's less than 3 minutes long. The way this is set up is they introduce one concept at a time, and they have a video that introduces the concept. Then there's usually a problem and sometimes an activity, and then they do the next concept with a new video. So they have kind of that cycle of learning as they go through it. Go back to that main page, and then that process is the same for all the different content areas. And students can kind of keep track of their score. If students don't master the content, so if they aren't getting at least 75% correct, then they give them special lessons. So they get additional time to understand what's going on. That also flags the remote learning teacher, so the remote learning teacher could come in with some additional lessons. So maybe the next day in class, she would say, here's some other things we could work on. You know, I know this is kind of a challenge, or she might pull a small group of students in or an individual lesson with the student, but they would be aware that that student was struggling in that area and not really getting it from the computer piece. Real quick, I want to sign out of this and show you the parent piece of it. This is one of the things we heard in the spring, is that I'm not really sure if my kids are doing anything or not. They're on the computer, so we don't really know what they're doing. So this does come with the parent portal. So here I have a student at each of the schools in the district. So here I can log into my PC student, and oh, I got 100% on the ELA pretest, 2 out of 2 correct. And I spent 21 seconds in the introduction, and I was in progress in the other piece of it. So it does kind of keep track of that. There are some different pieces here. I can look at the score, so I can see the progress that students are making. I can look at the hours that they've spent. This is every day of the month. So I'll go down here, the month total. So I have a little bit of time in all those different areas. Keep in mind, I set this up last night, so I really haven't played as a first grader very much. There's also a live monitor. So if you have your child working on this while they're at daycare, and you can kind of gauge a little bit how much we're going to have to do tonight based on how much they're doing during daycare. You can see what's going on with that, and if they had any special lessons, and you can see what the special lessons were. So that's the parent side of it as well. We really wanted to be able to provide good information for parents so that they could help be our partners in this learning, because there's a lot of things that are going to be different this year. So that's a quick overview of Acellus. I'll stop sharing the screen now. Any questions based on that? Okay. Acellus does not use Eureka Math. It's not the same thing, but it is based on the Common Core Math Standards, and Eureka Math is based on the Common Core Math Standards. So you could say, yes, it does use it. I would say Eureka is probably a little bit more hands-on, the way the teachers are presenting that material, just because I've seen them present that material. So they're a lot more hands-on than just watching the video of it. So they would actually have like little stick people and little blocks of things that they would be matching up, so the kids would have that experience instead of drawing the line from the dinosaurs. So yes, and Drew's correct. Acellus would not be used for the on-site instruction. That is, if you choose remote only, that's the content that's provided along with a Baldwin teacher. So you would have a teacher from the primary center that would be assigned to your students. And again, once we know our numbers, then we know, is that a teacher for grade level? Is that a teacher from the primary center working with all the kids together? And how that breaks down. Katie, Katie asked about if some teachers will be assigned to virtual learners or in-school learners. Probably at this level, at the primary center level, we will be able to take a teacher and say they are the remote learning teacher. And so they will not have in-class learners, they will just have the online remote learners. And so that gives them lots of time to connect with students and really support whatever student needs we have.
And Heather asks, how many minutes of screen time will the kids be required to have for the on-site or hybrid? There isn't a requirement. It's the teacher, their classroom teacher, assigning either homework or work from a workbook and doing either small group or whole group lessons via Zoom. But the kids would have 360 minutes worth of schoolwork. But remember that 360 minutes, there's lots of things that can be counted as that.
And Sarah's asking about Acellus and STEM classes. So yeah, there are some electives in there that are kind of fun, that are a little different than what we're able to offer during the day. But I saw there's like elementary engineering and things that really fit into that STEM area, and some basic programming things. We would be able to put those in, and we would say, you know, the 4 core content areas, but then a student could take up to 6 courses at a time. So if they wanted one of the engineering ones, we could easily add that in, and that could be something else your child could be doing. So we do want to be cautious of that screen time though, because we don't want remote learning just to be in front of a computer all the time. There's so much more out in the world.
So with either the hybrid or the remote, your child would be working with primary center staff.
Yes.
Beth, you had asked about whether there would be preschool this year. Yes, we are planning on having half-day 3-year-olds and half-day 4-year-olds and 1 all-day 4-year-old class. Other questions that you might have in order to help you make this decision? Melinda, I know it's hard to figure out how to do 360 minutes a day if the parents are working all day. I know it's hard.
I know our daycare providers have been really great. And actually, when we started setting up these meetings, that was one of the things is we need to pull them in on this and see how we can partner together. Because there are times that those kids, I know they do experiments. I know they do some of these other learning activities. There's probably some time when the littles are taking naps that, our other first and second graders could be doing some independent reading. That could count. So I think getting some of that in while you are working, but while someone else is watching the kids, then that takes, cuts down on the amount of time. Also that kids would have a device so they could do some of that work while they're at their daycare, knowing that it is limited bandwidth probably because that daycare provider is probably watching multiple kids that would need to be working on the internet, and it's probably just normal internet in our homes. So there's some things we can do there that could maybe help out. And I think partnering with our daycare providers is a really good first step because they've been wonderful in supporting our kids.
If you are planning to have your child in the early childhood program, the half-day program, or the all-day 4-year-old, we either have or will be sending you an ASQ, an ASQ SE screener. We need, when you get that, or if you already have it and haven't returned it yet, we need that document. And kindergarten parents, same thing. The state is asking us to ask kindergarten parents to complete the ASQ and the ASQ SE, social emotional. Both of those questionnaires will provide us with really valuable information this year as we try to give the kids what they need right away. I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat. Okay, well, you know how to get in touch with me. Emails.
Dr. Ehling-Gwin, there's actually a lot of questions in the chat. I don't think it's loading for you. There's a ton of questions about IEPs that are coming up.
Okay, let me talk about IEPs. If a student has an IEP and the hybrid option is chosen, those IEPs will be implemented just as usual. We've got a way figured out that we think is the safest in order to keep the cohort together in person. If your family chooses the remote option and your child has an IEP, then the IEP team will have to meet to figure out how that IEP will best be met for your child. But IEP deadlines, timelines are still in place. So if you have an IEP scheduled for September 24th, that's when it will be. The difference will be, it will be through a Zoom meeting. Okay, will kids get in trouble for breaking social distancing or struggling with keeping masks on appropriately? They won't get in trouble. This is going to be hard for all of us. So nobody's going to be in trouble unless they are taking these and snapping them, because that hurts. So the normal kinds of disciplinary things that, we would get after kids about, we'll do that with masks probably too. If they're taking them off and swinging them around their head, that could be a problem. We have asked for mask lanyards that when the kids take their mask off, it will be attached to a lanyard, so it will stick with them, so they won't be getting it mixed up or losing it. But no, they won't get in trouble. And the social distancing, you know, most kids think that this is 3 feet long, so it's all going to be an instructional process. Hannah will work on that for Travis. Okay.
Question about the SLS program, if we can switch to remote in the middle. What we're asking now is that everyone makes a decision for first semester. And the reason is because however many students we have choosing remote learning impacts the number of students that are back in the classroom, which impacts the class sizes and all of the distancing and everything else we can do. So we're trying to keep those sizes manageable for teachers as well as for other students so that we, you know, can have kids in a classroom and learning together. So if we keep switching, you know, we're going to be adjusting things and messing up cohorts and all of that. So if we could make a decision for the semester, and then if that's not working for you, then we'll switch at semester, or you can stay with the same thing at semester. That the semester just is better for the planning to be able to adjust class sizes and keep cohorts together.
Okay, there's a question about if a class has to quarantine due to a positive test within that cohort. It will, I can't give a definite answer because we will take our direction from the health department. If it's a 2-week quarantine, yes, then everybody will be online with that teacher. If the teacher gets sick and everybody's quarantined, there's the possibility that those kids would be switched just to another teacher to do the online. Are there enough individual desks to do social distancing in the classroom? No, there aren't. Second grade has individual desks, but the reason that we're having them wear masks is because we could only get 9 or 10 students in a class if they weren't wearing masks. So we are asking teachers to move unnecessary furniture out of the room so that students can be separated as much as possible. I have ordered their plexiglass shields that will go on tables. So, you know, if you think science fair with that trifold deal, but then reimagine it as plexiglass, that's what would be on the table to help separate each student. That's what we're doing to try and mitigate some of those things that are just difficult because we don't have the space to social distance everywhere. The ASQ questionnaires are due as soon as you can get them to us. We need them. We need them. If a student misses the live portion of class one day but completes the rest of the work, will that be counted as an absence? Janna, you want to answer that one?
Yeah, we're trying to figure this out because the secondary schools from 7th grade on up are doing an AB schedule. So they see kids every other day. Right now, we believe that if they are gone, well, let's see, if we have an in-person and then we go remote, then if they're doing the work, we're just not even going to count it. So they're just there. So we don't know if that's the right answer or not, but we'll try to go with that until the state tells us we can't, because that just seems like the easiest way to manage it. Because we should be grading learning and what kids are doing and what they know, and not seat time. But that's a whole nother Zoom meeting.
Yeah. If we go to in the hybrid model, if we have to go to a home situation, there aren't time requirements. Is the child doing the work?
And at that point, the teacher would still be teaching, so they still be having some Zoom meetings and doing things with the students. And so if they don't see them, then they're going to be following up on it. And we can't have some of the things that happened last spring. We want students still learning, but we also hope this isn't going to be an indefinite shutdown, that it could just be a short 2-week period, and then we can get back to normal and get back to classroom instruction. A question there about masks. I think, do we have masks on the supply list? So I know that.
I will be sending a supply list with a couple of additions on it. The printed supply list is just the normal, typical school supplies. I'm going to ask you to provide a mask or masks for your child, and also a water bottle, no glass bottles, but a plastic or a metal one, and to have the child bring that to school filled with water, no soda pop. But our drinking fountains, we have to cover them, and they will not be available. Every pod has faucets though, so kids can refill their water bottles at the faucet.
And there's also a group in town that's been making masks. So with the Lumberyard Art Center, and they're making masks for all of our students. So we'll have some available too.
And we know that kids are going to forget their mask, leave it at home one day. So we have some extras. Will students doing Acellus have any interaction with other grade level peers during the day or semester? That will be completely up to the parent having play dates.
And it depends on our numbers too, because if the remote learning teacher has 20 students across the PC, then that may be one cohort group of students that they're meeting with in a Zoom meeting. But if you have 20 students that are all second graders, then that's one second grade teacher. So it kind of depends on where our numbers fall, and why registration process and knowing all of your options is an important piece of all this.
Let me go back to the ASQ and ASQ SE. That was sent to all of the kindergarten students who parent had signed them up, and we had access to their email. The ASQ was sent a paper copy to early childhood students that had completed the application for the early childhood program, with a few exceptions, and those will be going out next week. So if after next week you still don't have it, send me an email and we'll get it for you. Yes, we will. If we have to go to an online at home, then just like last spring when we were able to provide a device, we will be able to have a device for students to take home. This year in school, each one of the kids is going to have their own device. So there won't be any sharing of those iPads or MacBooks. But then there would be a device for them to take home if we're quarantined or closed.
And if you choose remote learning, and need a device, we can provide that as well. And one of the things we learned in the spring is that sometimes a family just got one device, but you had multiple kids trying to use it. So if you need multiple devices because you have multiple children, we can do that. So it's pretty much whatever you need, let us know.
How does the cohort work as far as PT, OT, etc., coming in from outside the group? Jennifer, that's something that we're still talking about. The district has purchased masks, face shields, gloves, and gowns. And so my guess is those people who have to go in like PT, OT, speech, they will probably be wearing those things in order to better protect everybody. Okay, arrival procedures. I hate saying it's going to work just like it always has, but that's my hope, with the exception of everybody slowing down a little bit so we can take temperatures. So we're going to ask people to be socially distanced. We hope we have infrared thermometers, and they're quick. So it shouldn't, we're hoping, delay too much. The other thing I probably should have started this off with is my disclaimer that this is a plan that we think will work, but we may have to make adjustments as we go. As a member of our school board says, I'm really sorry, but this is my first pandemic. You know, so we're figuring out a lot of things. We're just figuring them out. For the remote learning, a list of approved activities. You know, we can give you suggestions, but each family's going to come up with other things, and it's the parent that's going to sign the daily log. So the parent's going to decide, was this a learning activity for my child?
I think we can be creative on that too. I know, like, there's the group that's doing the Baldwin City rocks and painting the rocks. So you could take a walk and discover where those rocks are at. And you could be talking about the community that you're walking through, and that fits, you know, your kindergarten and first grade curriculum. And then you could talk about your directions that you're going. So that's some social studies, and your walk is PE. I mean, there's a lot of things we could do that really just are everyday activities that are fun and, you know, family oriented, that could count as learning activities. We learn all the time.
The providing IEP services for remote learners will be a decision that will be made by the IEP team. Yeah, kids have a cubby or a backpack, so that's where they will keep their things. Teachers are not playing. A lot of teachers in the past have had like a community crayon basket. We won't be doing that this year. Everything, the student supplies will be the student supplies. So they won't be shared.
We've talked about plans if things do get closed down, that maybe they have their baggies of their manipulatives they use for math. And if we know about it in advance, we can go ahead and send those home with the kids. And then they already have the things that they need to continue doing the activities, unlike last spring.
And if it happens suddenly, then like last spring, we'll have a pickup day.
Well, we'll figure it out.
If you want to send some of the teachers have talked about, there's a clear shoebox size box that supplies could be kept in. Can't get anything too big because that takes up so much room on their desk or their table. Now, are there any more questions? Enrollment should open up Monday or Tuesday, I think. Right, Janna?
Yes, I think we're targeting after the board meeting because there's some things in there that the board needs to approve. One of the things being like a technology fee, because at the junior high and high school, they had a technology fee, but when we just sent devices out with all the elementary kids, you guys did not have one. So we're asking the board just to waive that fee for everyone for a year so that we can just hand out the devices that we need to hand out should we need to. So some decisions that have to be made that impact registration, and then they'll do a little bit of testing with it to make sure it's ready to go and then get that out. So probably next Tuesday or Wednesday is what we're targeting. And then hopefully we can try to get everyone to sign up and have their decisions online by August 14th. So, and then that's when we can start figuring out our numbers and figuring out class sizes and distancing and all of that.
The last thing I heard about how long enrollment would be open was August 14th, I think.
14th is what we're trying. We're gonna
Yeah.
For the Acellus program, they really won't need anything except a computer, access to the internet. So we can help with the devices, and we can give suggestions on some internet places if we need that. Yeah, and then any other learning activities you want to do. I know there will probably still be ways to check out books, either from our library or the public library, and we can help with that. And there are some online resources that we can suggest for books if you want to get additional just reading books. There may be some art supplies and things. If you took arts or your school supplies home from last year, probably those would work to create and make anything you would want to. Oh, Brandy.
Brandy, I don't know. I don't want to think about it. So mask breaks. The kids have 2 15-minute recesses each day, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. They have a 30-minute lunchtime. Those times are times when they don't have to wear a mask. Many classes have a 15-minute snack time in the morning that you can't eat with a mask on. So that's a mask-free time. The brain breaks I was talking about, those are pretty quick. Those are maybe 5 to 8 minutes long in between all those other maskless times. Katie, we can look at scheduling another 1 or 2 of these, yes. Because I'm going to guess you're going to think of more questions. And I can't remember if I answered, but yes, we will have Meet the Teacher by Zoom. And for those of you that are new to the building and have asked if you can have a tour, if you would email me that that's something that you would like, then we can arrange that. But it'll be about a week. The building is still being cleaned. So right now, nobody can walk around the building because they're working on tile out in the hallway. Okay. Everybody remember to wash your hands. Wear that mask. Stay home. Okay. We'll talk to you soon. If you do have questions before we meet again, email me. I'm looking at my email about 24 hours a day. So let me know what questions you have. Okay? Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.